Hello, and welcome to the Cedar Falls School Board Forum. My name is Gabby DeWitt. I'm your moderator this evening. I'm a lifelong resident of Black Hawk County and also a Cedar Falls resident, so I'm happy to be here as well. I have great memories of our time in our Cedar Falls School District. I had 2 kids graduate, and as a voter, I really enjoy events like this. I think forums are important to be informed voters, so it's great to see such a great crowd tonight. We would like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring tonight's forum, the City of Cedar Falls for providing the space. It's a really great space. And Channel 15 crew is making sure that the forum is recorded and will be distributed so that voters who are not able to be here tonight are able to see it, hopefully before Election Day. So first off, we're going to start off by introducing the candidates for Cedar Falls School Board. We're just going to have you give a little wave, and then we'll come back through and do opening statements. So your first candidate is Kim Cross. Next candidate, James McCullough. Grace Rogers. Lowell Stutzman. And Brian Winger is also on the ballot but is not able to attend today. And then also you will see on your ballot candidate for the remainder of a 4th term, Susie Hines. And because she is not running with any opposition, she will not be one of the candidates at the forum. We're only doing contested races for the forum. But when you do go to the polls, you will be able to choose 3 of the candidates when you vote. So you want to make sure to choose your 3. All right. So first off, we're going to start with opening statements. And so we're going to start with Kim. You have 2 minutes to give an opening statement.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and for everybody who had anything to do with tonight. It's really appreciative that we have a chance to talk to the voters and answer questions that you may have. My name is Kim Cross, and I am a public educator. I was for 39 years. 35 of those were in Cedar Falls, 25 as a principal, and the remaining as a teacher at Hanson Elementary, actually. And then I moved around from Lincoln. First, I was a principal at Dyke New Hartford. Then I came back to Cedar Falls again and was at Lincoln, Orchard Hill, Southdale, and then was lucky enough to open up Aldrich Elementary, and I retired 2 years ago. I am a volunteer now, and I also serve on Leader Valley Council, which is tied to the Leader and me in the schools in the Cedar Valley.
Great. Next is James.
First, thanks everyone for coming tonight. My name's James McCullough. My family and I moved to Cedar Falls when I was 5 years old. I first attended Orchard Hill Elementary, so I'm a product of Cedar Falls schools. Finally graduated from Price Lab NU High here in Cedar Falls. I started my college career at the University of Northern Iowa, where both my parents once taught. My father, Jim, was a social work professor who taught there for 40 years. My mother, Cheryl, was primarily a school social worker who worked for AEAs but spent most of her time in Cedar Falls schools. I finished my academic studies with a PhD in electrical engineering from the University of Michigan. In terms of education experience, I have taught classes before. I've taught university-level electrical engineering courses, taught help sessions, wrote and graded tests, so I do have experience there. I worked as an engineer for about 7 or 8 years in corporations. Presently, I have my own business here in Cedar Falls where I commercialize my PhD research. I'm running for Cedar Falls School Board because of a genuine desire to serve where I can make a meaningful contribution. Service and education were values that I learned growing up in Cedar Falls. For example, my father and grandfather served overseas in the military, and my father and mother were educators and social workers here in Cedar Falls. Second, I want Cedar Falls to thrive as a community. I really like living here. I'm a product of Cedar Falls. Third, I believe I have a lot to contribute to the school board. From my background growing up in Cedar Falls, my experiences in academia, corporations, and as a small business owner. Thank you.
Great. And next is Grace.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming, and thank you for everybody who helped put on tonight, as everyone said, and we'll say again at the end. I'm Grace Rogers, and I guess I didn't write down my background because I just had my opening statement, but I originally grew up in Illinois and moved to Iowa after we graduated college, me and my high school sweetheart, to work for Deere, and I've been an engineer there ever since. But why we're here tonight, I'm running for school board, and I wrote it down because I do better with, scripts. I don't get off topic. I'm running for school board because our kids and teachers deserve champions, not censors. As a proud parent of children in this district, I want every student, and teacher for that matter, to feel safe, included, and empowered. My engineering career enables me to think outside the box when outside forces like state legislatures or extremist groups try to strong-arm our local policies into discriminating against the already marginalized. As a progressive community activist, I've fought for equity and representation, and I'll do the same here. I support teaching the truth about race, gender, and history, not whitewash propaganda. I'll fight for teachers to have the freedom to teach honestly, and for classrooms to be filled with books that reflect a diverse world. I stand with LGBTQ+ students and teachers of color, and students and teachers with disabilities. I'll push back against censorship, political agendas, and efforts to divide us because schools should expand minds, not censor them. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And Lowell.
I also want to say thank you for coming and putting this event on. So my name is Lowell Stutzman. I was born and raised in Iowa, down south of Iowa City in a small town called Kelowna. I grew up on a farm, but I always knew I didn't want to be a farmer. I'm from a large family, and with a large family comes a lot of chaos, and I escaped a lot of that chaos by burying my head in books and read a lot as a kid. I'm a first-generation college graduate, graduating with high distinction from Iowa State University with a BS degree in mechanical engineering. I also have an MBA from University of Iowa Tippie College of Business and a systems engineering master's certificate from Caltech. I'm married to my wife, Danielle. We have 4 daughters, and my day job is I'm an engineering project lead at John Deere for the large tractor cab group. And while I didn't grow up here or graduate from Cedar Falls, I can testify that Cedar Falls produces the best graduates because I'm married to one. Our youngest is just starting preschool, and so with that, all 4 of our daughters are at Hanson Elementary this year. So we are a big splash at Hanson. And while no school is perfect, we enjoy the school community and are thankful for the teaching staff and the leadership at Hanson. So I'm running for re-election to the Cedar Falls Board of Education for a number of reasons. As my background shows, I've always been about education, and I have a strong educational background, but I've always also been involved in some sort of academic tutoring, mentoring, or coaching in some capacity. I feel that my educational background and excellence give me strong foundation of experience and also some uniqueness as I'm not tied directly to education in my career. I have a pretty broad network in the community through working for one of the largest area employers, my church community, marrying into a local family, and relationships with city leaders and community members and other areas. So I think I'd be a good asset to stay on the board. Thank you. Sorry I went a little bit over.
Great, thank you. And yes, we'll have 2 minutes for every question. We're now going to begin the forum with 2 opening questions for our candidates. And while these questions are being answered, and also I already have a few questions submitted by the audience, there is a person in the back of the room. She's going to give you a wave. If you have a question that you would like to have asked, she will come and pick up these questions from the audience, and she'll bring them up here. All questions must be submitted in writing and will be asked by me as the moderator. We're not going to be taking questions directly from the public. So our first question that to get us started, and we're going to start off with James with this question. Thank you. What are your 2 highest priorities for the Cedar Falls schools?
Sure. I'll focus on challenges and priorities the school board has some say on. First, to maintain academic excellence, I think salaries need rebalance so our administrators, staff, and teachers can better focus on students. I hear many concerns about the difficulty of finding para-educators while I'm knocking, for example. They are very likely need paid more. At the same time, I hear many concerns about the pay administrators receive. For example, Superintendent Petit did not request a raise this year, yet he received a significant raise. I believe he was right not to request a raise, just based on the economic difficulties of the past couple years and the burden of the new school and the pool on the Cedar Falls taxpayer. I had a great conversation with Superintendent Petit. I think he's a great administrator that we want to keep, by the way. I just don't agree with the school board on giving him a raise. I would have voted against that. Additionally, with other administrators such as principals, when their raises were discussed, there was no discussion or comparison to administrator salaries throughout Iowa. I would have likely voted against that pay increase too. There is a time for administrator salary increases. This year wasn't it, in my opinion. Second, having full transparency and holding the line with property taxes is a challenge and a priority, especially when it comes to major projects. I meet people who are absolutely thrilled with the new high school, clearly voted for the bond, but don't understand why the bond didn't cover the pool and why we had to request another $9 million from the city of Cedar Falls for the pool. Well, this looks to be a great pool, and I deeply appreciate the donors, and costs like this may be necessary every couple generations. The project went back to the city multiple times with increased cost requests each time. We must be very mindful of our taxpayers, and the burden of projects must be very clear and described well for the city of Cedar Falls. Thank you.
Thank you. Grace?
Hi. My two highest priorities are, one, creating inclusive and supportive environments for every student and teacher, and ensuring that our students are fully prepared for life after graduation. So first, I want every student and teacher to feel safe, included, and supported, because those are the foundations of academic success. How can a marginalized student or teacher give their full attention to learning or teaching if they're worried about being bullied or discriminated against for who they are? With that being said, I would vote to put gender identity back into our anti-bullying and anti-discrimination policies. On that note, I deeply value the above and beyond work teachers do every day, work that often goes far beyond what's written in their job descriptions. As an engineer at Deere, I understand what it means to see a gap and fill it, not because it's required, but because it's the right thing to do and benefits everyone. That's exactly what teachers and staff do every day. And as a board member, I would carefully evaluate all workload before adding more to their plates. And I would advocate for teachers to have greater ownership and control over their working conditions by moving permissive items from the board policies and employee handbook back into individual contracts. Second, I believe it's vitally important to prepare students for the real world. We can do this in many ways. A couple that I want to highlight in my limited time are continuing to support and showcase the real-world learning experiences that we already have available, like the CAPS program, Authentic Learning, First LEGO League, and more. And also teaching fact-based history and science and encouraging critical thinking, which is actually one of the new Tiger 10 values, about all aspects of history, including slavery, gender studies, and human sexuality. As the saying goes, if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. And I want to make sure our students are equipped not to repeat the worst parts of our past. So I will strongly advocate for our teachers' freedom to teach and our students' freedom to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lowell?
Okay, so thinking about the two highest priorities, I want to first start by saying I'm not a single issue candidate. I don't come from any political ideology or dogma, and I promise to give every issue and concern a fair and balanced approach and listen to concerned community members. With that being said, what came to mind for me is the high school campus. The building is complete, and the pool has now opened to students and community members, which is a big success. TPC Phase 1 Plus, so basically 1 plus some additional items, is ongoing. We have an interim principal this year, and so we need to seat that position long term. We need to wrap up the TPC project, so I would say kind of wrapping up the high school campus is top of mind. Another thing that I think is a challenge for pretty much across the country, and also for Cedar Falls, is just teacher recruitment and retention. And so while I realize that a lot of this is systemic, I'm concerned that the decision to go into public education becomes harder for young educators thinking about a life and career in education. And I would say it's a noble calling, but it is difficult. And so I want to be personally encouraging to our teaching staff, lifting them up, supporting them in any way that I can to make that decision easier and more compelling. I will do everything I can to make Cedar Falls a compelling choice for a teaching career by highlighting and celebrating our strengths and our wins, and embracing difficult decisions at the board level to help teachers and support staff to focus on the main things. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Now we'll move on to the second question, and this time we'll be starting with Grace. Oh, I'm sorry, Kim.
Don't
I
leave her
apologize.
out.
Kim, yes. What are your two highest priorities? That's going to mess me up, starting with different people. What are your two highest priorities for Cedar Falls Schools? Sorry about that.
So my number one priority is student learning. I think obviously our kids are why we're here. And I think a lot of things tie in with that student learning. A safe environment, an active environment where learning occurs, and a respectful environment. And that all leads to learning. If you don't feel safe, you're not going to learn. If you don't feel respected, you're not going to learn. And it's the same thing with the workers. If they don't feel respected, if they don't feel safe, if they don't have input, learning is our most important priority with the school board and with my job being on the school board. I think my second priority is being an advocate for public schools. And I think that ties in directly with my first priority because it hasn't been a priority for the state. We've obviously lost funding, and that doesn't make people feel very good when we're asking them to take freezes or their raises aren't keeping up with inflation. They need to feel respected, wanted, and needed because their jobs are so very important. And I don't care what job it is. I don't care if it's the school bus driver, a teacher, a paraeducator, the food service personnel, or an administrator. Everybody is very important because without all of these jobs, then our students aren't cared for and the learning doesn't take place. So my top two priorities are student learning and everything that goes with it, and being an advocate for all of our public school employees and the students in our system.
Thank you. And I'm sorry about that. I've got a system now. All right. So our second question that was pre-prepared is, why are you the best person for this role? And we will be starting with Grace.
All right. As an 8-year resident of Cedar Falls, mother of 2 children currently enrolled in our public schools, data-driven, empathetic, progressive, autistic, queer, gentle parent candidate, I am uniquely positioned to bring a fresh, contemporary perspective to the school board. My professional background as an engineer at John Deere has equipped me with critical problem solving and data analysis skills. Don't put me in front of a spreadsheet. Don't do it. And has provided me experience navigating complex union negotiations and finding collaborative solutions. The unique skills that I can bring to this role are my strong attention to detail and my ability to dig into root causes of problems and uncover insight from complex data. In my role at Deere, I often work with people who try to make the data fit their personal narrative, but I've seen firsthand how that approach leads to less productive and less effective decisions. I bring a unique strength in letting the data tell its story, whether it's quantitative or qualitative. My superiors sometimes see me as a thorn in their side because I ask a lot of questions about data-driven decisions and root cause analyses, but that's because I've learned that pushing for clarity early on through questions and discussion leads to stronger, more successful outcomes in the end, and that's what I'll bring to every aspect of serving on the school board. My commitment to our community extends beyond my professional life. I am an active community organizer and volunteer with local groups, advocating for human rights and civic engagement. As a full-time working parent, I understand the challenges of balancing professional and family responsibilities while remaining deeply invested in our educational system. My daily interactions with my children in their school provide me with ground-level insights into the current educational landscape, allowing me to bring authentic, current perspectives to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Lowell?
So first of all, I know that there's value in having either former or current educators on the board, but I also see value in having a balance of what I would call outsiders like myself. So I bring a deep personal love of education and learning, and also a career in engineering and business that provides me with a broader perspective outside of those members on the board in the educational fields. My personal assessment is that we're at a critical moment in public education where we need leaders who will champion the mission of public education and promote the service to those who are skeptical. And to be fair and transparent, I represent a lot of people who are skeptical, and I see it as my role to speak the truth, refute misinformation and misconceptions, and make sure that everyone knows the value that Cedar Falls schools are producing. So in the 4 years that I've been on the board, I think I might have forgot to mention that in my opening statement, but I have been on the board for the past 4 years, and this is my re-election cycle. But in the 4 years that I've been on the board, our students have performed and received 5 perfect ACT scores. We've had 14 National Merit Scholars, numerous other prestigious awards such as a U.S. Congressional Gold Youth Medal, 3 Congressional Bronze Medals, more athletic state champions and championships than I can list. The choice is clear. Cedar Falls is the best school system in town, and still, post-ESAs is still the only 100% tuition-free choice in Cedar Falls. So I don't hear other people describe the choice like that, and I feel like I'm the community leader who can articulate this with a strong impact because I feel like I come from a bias-free perspective.
Okay, thank you. And Kim?
As I said before, I worked in the system for 35 years, so I feel like that gives me a lot of knowledge about the system, and it also gives me that connection to people who work in our schools and in our administration. I was both a teacher and an administrator in our district, and currently I have been subbing when there has been a need. I'm not a regular sub, I don't sub every day, but I have had calls where there have been some dire needs, and I have filled in as a secretary, as a para, as an administrator, and I said I would never do it as a high school sub in the CAPS program, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did that for 5 weeks at the end of my first school year of retirement, and I really enjoyed it. But I feel like that gives me a lot of knowledge. I led 4 different buildings in my time as an administrator. That means I worked with school budgets, I worked with staff development, I worked with curriculum, I worked with creating climate and culture. Obviously, I worked with student learning and looking at data. And so I feel like that gives me a leg up because those will be things I don't have to sit and try and learn because I already know that. And my relationships with people in the school system, I feel, will really give me that ear for people to bend. And I've already had people who've said, I hear you're running for the board. I have some questions for you. And I invite that. So I have friends who still currently work for the system who have already asked me those questions. I think I also show that I love the system because I came back. I am not originally from Cedar Falls. I taught here for 4 years and then went back home. And after teaching in California for 1 year, I discovered California was no longer home, Iowa was, and I came back. And part of it might have had to do with the fact that I was dating my husband at the time, who is a Cedar Falls graduate. And so that, I think, shows a lot of why I want to stay here and be a part of the system some more.
Thank you. And James?
I believe I have a lot to contribute to the school board from my background in Cedar Falls and experiences in academia, corporations, and as a small business owner here in Cedar Falls. Similar to Lowell, I understand that some who are supporting my candidacy are skeptical of public education. However, the vast majority of Cedar Falls residents revere Cedar Falls schools. They revere the teachers, the staff, the educators, the administrators, and they have a great deal of pride on it. I'm a product of Cedar Falls schools and a product of Cedar Falls. My one thing I would like to highlight, a couple things I'd like to highlight. First, my mother was a AEA social worker in Cedar Falls schools. She would often talk to my father and I about the experiences that she had, many heavy experiences as a school social worker in Cedar Falls schools. And they took a toll on her. And so I can empathize I can empathize with Cedar Falls school staff as a family member for what they go through. Second, on a professional level, I'm a small business owner, early stage tech startup headquartered right here in Cedar Falls, working to commercialize my research in vibration energy harvesting, so don't get me started on that. My company has been awarded 2 National Science Foundation SBIR Small Business Innovation Research grants, including one this year. I've also served as a reviewer and a panelist for the National Science Foundation to review grant proposals. So I think that has great relevance, for example, to like the CAPS program, where we work directly with businesses. I'm just a huge fan of the CAPS program. One more thing about my candidacy and my philosophy, I really do see this as a nonpartisan board. As I was considering running for school board, one of the things I really liked is I saw a team. Individuals from different backgrounds came together and weren't trying to score political points. I'll work to continue this. Thank you.
Very good. Now we're moving on to the section of questions by the audience. This will be the first time that the candidates have heard these questions, so if you need me to repeat them, I'd be happy to do that. And it's the first time I've read them, so if I stumble, my apologies. So our first question, and I'm reading them in order that I've gotten them. Is that what we do, Jean? Okay, very good. So the first question, my granddaughter is 10 years old, recently commented about the fact that she can't talk, and this is starting with Lowell, she can't talk about LGBTQ in the schools. She loves her gay uncles. What are we supposed to tell her?
Well, I think all students have the right to free speech, the right to expression of religion, and the right to express their views. So I don't know what more to say about it other than, we shouldn't be, there are definitely common sense boundaries on student behaviors, but I would not take the position of limiting a student's free speech. I guess that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you. Kim?
I would agree with Lowell. I think it's important to allow students to talk about their families. That makes them, once again, feel safe in an environment where they can share about their families and what's important to them. Way back when, I often tell kids, I taught 6th grade 100 years ago, and I taught family living, which is the generic term for sex ed. And I remember 100 years ago, you had to be very careful about a lot of things, and we still do. And I remember saying to students when they would bring up different topics, these are things that that you need to talk to your families about if you have questions about things that are being brought up, such as, my parents live together, they're not married. Somebody else says they have to be married. Those are controversial questions that kids are being asked or ask of each other when they hear these kinds of things. And now this is the same kind of thing. They should feel comfortable asking questions, talking about those questions. And if somebody else comes up and says, well, in our family, we don't believe that, then I would say, then that's something you need to go back to your family and talk to them about. And I would encourage teachers to do the same thing. I had to train myself in that, not giving out my opinions during teaching a family living, but just staying with the facts and then encouraging kids to have those discussions with their families.
Thank you. James?
Like others have said, I think students have free speech, and I don't think that is entirely like in question. One thing around this subject, I mean, certainly there are. I mean, I'll just state the elephant in the room. There are laws that have been implemented that, limit some things that can be talked about in class, as it relates to, even LGBT issues and other issues. One thing we have to make sure we do is protect our staff and protect our teachers. We have to make sure that our teachers don't lose a license or don't have other problems. And as I've knocked, I heard a wide variety of opinions on exactly this question, and sometimes this deep disagreement between different people that I spoke to. But one of the key things is to protect our staff and protect our teachers, and understand at the same time understand our students do have the right to free expression. Thank you.
And Grace?
As far as what can we do, I'm not sure if I can answer that question specifically, but I can provide some education on that law if everyone would like me to use my 2 minutes to the fullest. That is Law SF 496 that was passed in May of 2023, which includes provisions that ban in grades K through 12 virtually all books containing descriptions or depictions of a sex act, and in grades K through 6 forbids curriculum, this is in quotes, or instruction that is related to gender identity or sexual orientation. Of the 3,400 books in the articles that I was looking at, include 1984, Brave New World, The Kite Runner, Friday Night Lights, and the Pulitzer Prize-winning graphic novel Mouse. The loss of these classic books because of bans can hurt students. I'll get back to the free speech thing in my 2 minutes. Robbing them of the chance to hear diverse ideas and voices, experts and education advocates claim. So I am going to support teachers from being targeted in teaching those books. I understand that there are some that have been removed, but the language is so vague, and I think that's almost on purpose. So the impact that has is that now our teachers live in a constant fear of being targeted or having that vagueness pointed at them. And we all know how effective the internet is at doing that. So as a school board member, we can protect our teachers from having conversations about their lives. Maybe they are LGBTQ. Maybe they have, maybe there's two husbands, or you have two moms, or you have gay uncles. Essentially, by preventing teachers from answering questions that students ask about the world around them, one more sentence, we are setting students up to fail when we should be empowering them.
Okay, thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Kim. Do you believe public schools should remain secular, or do you support efforts to insert religious instructions, such as Christian-based programs like LifeWise, into the school day? Do you support the separation of church and state in our schools or not? Please explain why or why not, and what guides your answer.
So I am definitely a public school advocate, and I do not believe that we should be using school time for Bible study. In essence, that's what LifeWise is trying to do. And I'm going to say that I raised my kids in Cedar Falls for a reason. I love this town, the schools, the teachers. My kids had great experiences in Cedar Falls. And they will tell you that. That's not just mom saying that. I also raised them in a Christian home. And we took them to Sunday school. They went to church services on Sunday. They had confirmation classes on Sunday evenings when they got to junior high and high school. They had Wednesday night activities that they were quite active in, and they invited friends to. And I feel like they got a well-rounded Christian background because this town allows that. There are many churches in this town. And I don't believe that using public school time for that, when teachers are so stressed to make sure that they reach the full potential of kids in their classrooms, and now you're going to tell them, oh, have the makeup work for those kids who are leaving school, and don't tell me it's only 20 minutes. There's no way it's 20 minutes. The lesson might be 20 minutes, but getting them out of school and then getting them back, and then who supervises that? That really worries me. Who supervises what's being taught during the school day in an off-site situation? So no, I am not in favor of that, obviously, because, and for religious exemption, kids are allowed to leave school. We have been doing that for years in the school system.
Okay, thank you. James?
Sure. This similar question came up in our last forum, the CFESP last week. As I understand, this program is actually mandated by law that we have to follow it. So, isn't it? Okay.
That's not true. No.
Well, we do.
The time is.
The time. The time is unexcused. That's sure. The time is unexcused.
Sir.
Is excused.
The time is excused. Sure. That's
Not unexcused. Yeah.
okay.
Two negatives.
The time is excused. So is the question like, do we if the time is excused, do we specifically
Support it.
The question is actually that is it, oh, sorry, wrong one. Yeah. Should public schools remain secular, or do you support efforts to insert religious instruction such as Christian-based programs like LifeWise into the school day? And do you support the separation of church and state in our schools? Why or why not?
Our role as school board members is to make policy based on law. So if the law basically says you have, I'm getting it right, excused time, I don't know what power as a school board member I'm going to have about whether or not there's excused time or not. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Grace?
Thank you for the question. It is similar to the one we had last week. So I was able to write up a more prepared response. I do not support efforts to insert religion into the school day. I do support the separation of church and state. I oppose the disruption that a program like LifeWise would create for both students and teachers, as Kim was alluding to, if children were repeatedly released and returned to class during school hours. LifeWise advocates have made it clear that they do not plan to use before or after school hours, as they've been suggested by our own superintendent. On their own LifeWise Big Picture packet, it states that they are, in black and white, and I quote, this is the quote, fully committed to the LifeWise Academy vision to reach unchurched students with the gospel, end quote. Their goal isn't simply to offer religious instruction to children who seek it, it's to evangelize and convert unchurched students. That's their words, it's not mine. For those reasons, that's not something I would support as a board member. Furthermore, because Iowa is a shall state, there's shall states and may states, according to HF 870, that's the law that James was referring to that was passed this summer. We have to count them as excused. It's the negative for me. But because Iowa's a shall state, regardless of the religion involved, as a school board member, I would advocate for policies that protect teachers and staff from added workload and safeguard students from bullying or peer pressure to participate.
Thank you. And Lowell?
Yeah, I hope to provide a nuanced response to this because I've thought quite a bit about it myself. And I will start with saying I'm a Christian myself, and I'm raising my daughters in the Christian faith. But I believe that primary responsibility rests on my wife and I and our church, not our local public school, to raise my kids in the faith. So cohesive with a lot of my other views as a school board candidate, one of my roles is to try to take undue burdens off of teachers and make their jobs easier. And I think the logistics of a program like this would be difficult and would be in conflict with that goal. But what I would say is that we already have time built into our 8:45 to 3:45 school week, and that's the PLC time. And I personally defend and want to protect PLC time for a number of reasons. It's better for teachers, and it's better for ultimately the students that the teachers have that PLC time, and we take some criticism for that, which I readily defend. But that time is already built into the week. So I would encourage any program to utilize that PLC time and not further encroach on instructional time in the district. As far as separation of church and state, I mean, what I believe is that separation of church and state means that the state cannot designate a religion. So if a public school designates some religion, one or another, that would be in violation of that. So hopefully those thoughts help.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to our next question. We'll start with James for this question. If a vote comes before the board for dismissal of Melissa Rogers, how would you vote on that recommendation?
I can't answer that because I don't have all the facts. And so this is a question I actually have thought about quite a lot. First, what I'd recommend people to do is to listen to the school board meeting from October 13th, listen to the public comment, listen to Director Lowell, Director Stutzman's comments, and also read the Waterloo Courier article about it. And at that point, you'll know about as much as I will. You may, in fact, know much more. And understand I've had conversations, multiple conversations as a candidate about this subject. One conversation I had, they were deeply troubled by the comment, and they wanted disciplinary action. Another much different conversation and much rougher conversation had a very different opinion. They were a little upset at me, but I didn't really say much, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I said in that last conversation. In this specific issue, I agree it's not a freedom of speech issue. What Director Stutzman said, and I'm paraphrasing, is for teachers, freedom of speech when it regards to social media is honored unless it interferes with the teacher's ability to perform their duties or affects the district's ability to efficiently provide educational services. If this does happen, there can be disciplinary action. I would have no interest in changing the policy. I believe this is the correct policy. With that being understood, I understand very much so that this is an individual's livelihood and reputation. Finally, I truly don't have all the facts. If elected, I would do my due diligence, ask questions, follow the policy, and keep partisan politics out of it. And on this issue and in every employment situation. And I believe it's not appropriate to rush to judgment until I have all the facts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Grace?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. If a vote comes before the board for dismissal of Melissa Rogers, how would you vote on that recommendation?
Okay, so as James said, we should make decisions with as much information as we can. And I'm going to share the information I have with you and then tell you how I would vote with that information. Melissa Rogers, as a quick background, is an award-winning AP psychology teacher at Cedar Falls High School and was removed from the classroom 6 weeks ago after she made a comment on her personal Facebook page regarding the assassination of a divisive political figure. I'm going to read her post so that everybody has the information. So it's a screenshot of her post. So she quotes Charlie Kirk saying, "I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have, I think it's worth it, I think you left on it, to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights," end quote, dash Charlie Kirk. Underneath that, as a teacher in American public schools, she wrote on her personal Facebook page, "I will share the same level of empathy for him as he has shown for children killed in school shootings. I will not mourn a Nazi and a person who has such close ties to a pedophile." That's the information. I wanted to make sure everyone had it. With that being said, yes, it is unfortunate that this even happened, that she had to say that, but she should be returned to the classroom, and I would vote to reinstate her if that vote came to the board, or I guess if the vote came to fire her, I would not vote to fire her, because the only reason it's impeding the teaching of the students is because she was targeted by an online attack group. So if that wouldn't have happened, I'm sure she'd still be in the classroom. Thanks, Jean.
Okay, thank you. And Lowell?
As a current sitting board member, I can't comment on personnel proceedings as much as I know or don't know about those proceedings, so I can't comment on that. What I will say is I would also encourage, I did give a statement at our last board meeting on the board's position on the issue, and I also think that our policies are sound, and I agree with and support our current policies that we have in place.
Okay, thank you. And Kim?
As a former administrator, I have had to let teachers go, unfortunately. And the amount of work that you put into it is horrendous. I don't know where anything stands as far as this as a personnel issue, because like James said and like Grace said, we're not privy to that information. It's a personnel issue. I do know that Melissa Rogers is a great teacher. My daughter had her, and because of her, she is one person in my daughter's life that has led her into the field of psychiatry. She started her first year of residency in psychiatry this year, and I'm proud of her. And I'm proud of the choice that she's made to help. She would like to go into child psychiatry to help children in our society because it's definitely needed. And so I think there's other pieces of data that we need to look at. And part of that is that in this day and age, when we lose good public school teachers because of being tired and being stressed and being pressured, and now we want to let one go, I don't think it should be a political reason to let her go. And part of me feels like it definitely is. And I worry about us if we're going to let good teachers go, because we need all the good teachers we can get in our school system. And I'm proud of the school system I used to work for, and that's why I'm running. And I want to keep those good teachers in their seats and be proud of them and let them know that I'm proud of them. So it's a hard decision. I can't say yes or no on that vote because I don't have all the information, but I do know she's a good teacher.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and we'll be starting with Grace. How have you personally and directly been involved with Cedar Falls Schools and the Cedar Falls Schools Foundation?
Thank you. I'm assuming that means other than being a parent of 2 kids at one of our public schools and being involved there. I did, as they're small, you can imagine, you get more free time as the years go on, right? So we're just transitioning into that stage where I have a little bit more free time. I mean, some days are. Anyway, so this year I actually started coaching the first Lego League team, which, if you're not familiar with Lego League, I'll give you a quick background. It's essentially groups of kids that, yes, they do build Legos, but that's not all they do. It's very much, it reminds me of how the CAPS program kind of trains them for real world stuff, but makes it really accessible for them via Legos. Who doesn't love Legos? So they get together, and it's kind of the fall season, so about 12 to 16 weeks of meeting every week. And they build models, they come up with problems, they do some research. This year's subject is archaeology. So I've had 2 of the 8 kids tell me, I think I want to be an archaeologist, because they do the research. They get to watch videos of archaeologists, telling them about what their job is. It's not just out in the dirt getting dirty, although some kids do like that. Sorry, not to get too far off topic, but I really think that that's a great opportunity to get involved, again, with the limited time that I have had up until this point, to just really connect some of the stuff that the kids are learning in school to what it's like on the outside, in the real world. Problem solving, working with people who are different than you, Googling the crap out of stuff. I love Googling stuff. I love learning. I crave that, and I love being able to give kids that opportunity that's a little bit less structured than in the classroom, and kind of just lets them blossom with their creativity. So that's what I've got for now. Thank you. I did run out of time.
Okay, thank you. And Lowell?
Well, as I said before, I have 4 daughters. So as you can imagine, my heart is full, my hands are full, and my calendar is full. I do have a lot going on, but it's a fun time of my life. I have served on the school board for the last 4 years, and the last 2 years as board president. I also serve on the CAPS advisory board, and I've worked to get a CAPS project started at my company, John Deere, and also support for the CAPS end of year innovation celebration. So the first ever John Deere CAPS project will be starting in January, which I'm very excited about and proud of. And hopefully we build momentum there and a strong partnership. I try to be as available and as involved as possible. One of my favorite things to do is 6th grade exit interviews. If you ever get a chance to do it, those are a lot of fun. When they graduate from 6th grade to go to junior high, they present their case to graduate from elementary school. So that's been something that I've done. The foundation, I know the foundation committee decently well. I've worked with Monica Boyer on the foundation board, and one small thing that I've done is my company has a tool that you can record volunteer hours and donate them to your favorite cause. And I got CAPS programs set up within that tool, so you can donate directly to CAPS through the foundation. So those are a few things that come to mind. And as my girls get older, I'm sure I'll start to be at some of the sporting events and things. Currently they're doing gymnastics, but I'm sure they'll start doing school sports here pretty soon.
Good, thank you. And Kim?
Interesting question. I don't think we had this one the other night. I did serve on Cedar Falls Schools Foundation Board. I want to say it was 9 years when we first started it. And then towards the end of that, we wrote some more specific bylaws that said that we needed to rotate members off of that, so we kept getting new members on. And so then my time off that became to step down from that board. I enjoyed my time on it. I was very active when I was on there. I contribute annually to the foundation, and I'm proud of that. And I think it shows, I think it's an investment in something I'm really proud of, and that's Cedar Falls Schools. And that's my way to be able to donate to a cause like that. Currently, I sit on Cedar Valley Council, which I think I mentioned before, and that's a Cedar Valley, an entire Cedar Valley council. And it works through the Leader in Me schools, as well as now it's getting into the businesses, and they're teaching different leadership classes to different businesses as well. And I sit on that board. I also have done exit interviews at 6th grade at 3 different schools, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I also do what they call mock interviews over at Hoover Middle School, and that's preparing kids with resumes and everything, and they come in and they talk to you, and I have to actually grade them. And so I do that about every 8 weeks. I do that. I supervise at games frequently. And when we passed the bond issue for our schools, Aldrich and for the high school, I made phone calls at night. I knocked on doors and handed out flyers about why it was important for us to have a new high school. So I've been very involved in our schools.
Thank you. And James?
I have fond memories of Orchard Hill Elementary. My family moved here, and we were in if you guys remember, the marriage student housing, which was right behind the UNI. So we lived there. I used to play in the creek there, but I had a great time at Orchard Hill. Some of these experiences that people are describing, like exit interviews, that sounds great. I think I'd love doing something like that. I also, I've been attending the school board meetings and listening for the past 5 months or so. I think I got most of them. My favorite part of these meetings is when you actually bring the students in and they discuss, I don't know, their different projects, what they have going on. I just love listening to that. So I'd also, the foundation is something I'd like to be further involved in too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Well, starting with Lowell, the state budget looks very tight next year. How would you address potential cost-saving proposals?
That's a difficult question. In last week's forum, it was asked, what would you prioritize in a cost-restrictive environment? The state budget is tight. In fact, we are now burning into reserves, which can't be sustainable for very long, several years at most. So we have to get the state budget within budget so that we can stay sustainable. Priorities, I'm always going to be focused, the priority on academics and the main thing. We've had the good fortune of being able to build our programs, build out additional programs and things. I don't have anything specific in mind that I would cut, but certainly the prized kind of most important thing is the main academics and the main academic rigor, whereas, I don't know, maybe some additional programs or something that's kind of extracurricular to that would maybe be the first thing. But our funding is on a student basis, so unless they reduced SSA, which I don't see that as being, there's been several years where they had it 0, but I've never seen them actually reduce it. It comes down to students. And so students in the district is what builds our budget. And so I'm going to do everything I can to, again, like I said, promote our schools and bring kids into the district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Kim?
I think this is a very tough question because Cedar Falls Schools has always been very fiscally responsible. We have always, we've never been real extravagant about things. And I think it's really important for the public to know that we have different budgets. And Lowell, I'm surprised you didn't say this because you usually do, but we have different pots of money, and you can't borrow from one pot to pay another pot. So people always talk about this beautiful high school, and I was lucky enough to open up Aldrich Elementary 7 years ago, and it's a beautiful elementary. And people say, well, you spent all that money on that. That's from a bond issue, and that cannot be used to pay salaries. And so that's something that we have to make sure that the public understands and knows that. But I do think that we have to continue to advocate at the state level, and the voucher system obviously has hurt us, and there's no way around that. And so we really have to advocate at the state level, because cutting pay is not the way to go. And I know that there's been ideas of cutting administrative pay. I don't think you can cut anybody's pay, because it makes them feel their job isn't important if you do that. And I'm all about respecting everybody who is an employee in Cedar Falls Schools and knowing that they're appreciated. Every employee that I know is overworked in Cedar Falls Schools. They love their jobs and they do it well. And so we can't look at cutting pay. We've got to look at what we have. And like Lowell says, it has to do with the bottom line is the student learning. You've got to have the employees there to make sure that student learning occurs.
Okay, thank you. And James?
It was asked differently,
Sure.
Liz. Can you repeat it one more time, please?
The state budget looks very tight next year. How would you address potential cost-saving proposals?
Sure, it is kind of a tough question. You'd have to know the proposal. I'll say a few things, though. The Iowa Association of School Board can lobby the state legislature, and I'm all for that when it comes to specific issues. This includes advocating for appropriate funding, keeping school board elections nonpartisan, and protecting IPERS. My mother had IPERS. It was a really important part of her compensation and retirement. So for whatever value my voice will have in that, you'll have my voice, for especially when it comes to funding. Another thing, I'm not proposing cutting administrators' pay. What I'm proposing is holding back on the salary increases now and again, and comparing salary increases to other areas around Iowa. Just having a basic, like, I watched the forum from last year, and one of the things they mentioned was how much less a paraeducator, for example, got paid in Cedar Falls versus surrounding areas. For example, in one case, it was like $12 or $13 in Cedar Falls, and this was from, a couple of years ago. Other areas, it was in 16, 17. That's what I remember. I'd like to just have a meeting where we explain why is that? Why is it that, where do our budgets differ? Do we tax less in Cedar Falls? Do administrators get paid more? Do teachers get paid more? Let's clearly get this information to the city of Cedar Falls so that they can make good choices, and we can get input as well. Also, just to put things in context, there were 1,000 layoffs from John Deere last year in the Cedar Valley, and this is going to indirectly and directly affect Cedar Falls and Cedar Falls schools. They continue to lay off. So we also have to be mindful of the taxpayers. We have to I knock doors. Sometimes you meet people who just lost their job or may have to leave because of property taxes. So be mindful of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Grace?
I'm going to have to ask you to
Yeah,
just repeat
absolutely.
one more time, sorry.
Yep. The state budget looks very tight next year. How would you address potential cost-saving proposals?
Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't gloss over the question with all of the data that I have in front of me. So how would I address cost-saving proposals? Again, it's going to depend, as James said, on the cost savings proposal. But at Deere, I am already hearing a lot of this. Lowell can probably attest to that too. It's where can we cut costs? Where can we cut costs? Where can we cut costs? And in these situations, I'm going to be frank, it feels like we're asking to put a Band-Aid on a hole in a boat. And that hole in the boat is our legislature. And it's a nonpartisan board, but we're very much affected by the political decisions that are being made in our state. So while I of course will address every cost-saving initiative or proposal with the same data vigor that I love to do all day, every day at Deere, I think the school board is in a unique position to share with the public the impacts of these budgets and limitations with our community so that our community and our voters can make informed decisions when they go to the polls, which is next year already. So with my remaining time, I just want to quote a couple of the statistics. If you were there last week, you heard them, but it wasn't televised and won't be on YouTube for the rest of time. So without further ado, from Senator Herman Quirmbach's, the ranking member of the Senate Education Committee. The link can be found on my Facebook, and I'll post it on my link tree also. I'm just going to hit some bullet points before Jean gives me the time card. He reported the following, and they're in bullets. Annual state funding for public K-12 schools has now fallen more than $500 million behind inflation. 20 seconds. Private school vouchers this year will cost $340 million of our tax dollars. Public money should be in public schools. Just want to make sure that's on the record. The shortfall is now more than $1,000 per student for regular program kids and $3,500 for the kids who need the most help in special education. In comparison, the voucher recipients receive $8,000 of our tax money per student. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And this question, we're going to start with Kim. And I think a lot of you have answered it, but I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to gloss over it. If you have children, are they attending Cedar Falls Public Schools, or will they when they're old enough, or did your children attend public school when they were of school age?
I have 26-year-old twins, and they K-12 went through Cedar Falls Public Schools, and I wouldn't have had it any other way.
James?
I don't have children, but I'm a product of Cedar Falls schools and a product of public schools in Cedar Falls, and I would definitely do it again.
Grace?
I've already said this, but yes, I do have two small children in Cedar Falls Public Schools. They've been in Cedar Falls Public Schools the whole time. And I was actually a product of public schools over in Illinois. And I think the reason that I can just say, of course, I wouldn't have had it any other way. The reason that I say that, and I know Cedar Falls is not the most diverse population, we all know that, but being in public schools does allow them to get as much diversity in their life as they can, not in their life, in their school time as they can, versus a private school, for example, that doesn't have to accept students with disabilities. You could go to a private school your entire school career and never meet a disabled kid, and then you get out into the real world and realize they exist, and I think it really provides a key cornerstone opportunity for kids in their development and acceptance and social emotional learning. And I think that's basically all. They're going to stay in public schools. I don't know if that was part of the question, but that's how I'll wrap it up. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And Lowell?
As I said before, we have 4 daughters. They're all currently attending Hanson Elementary. This is a choice between my wife and I, and I would say we talk about it every year. This is the choice that we've decided is best for our family. And we, like I said, we've had a good experience at Hanson Elementary. We live very close to it, so the girls can walk to school, which is a neat thing for us. What more was I going to say? I think that's, I guess the other thing that I was going to say is if I'm going to be on the board, my kids are going to be in the school that I represent. That's sort of a personal principle that I have. I'm not saying everybody else has to hold to that principle, but that's a principle that I'm going to hold.
Okay, thank you. Next question, we'll be starting with James. Given that LGBTQ students experience significantly higher rates of bullying and harassment in schools, and that other public school districts in Iowa have maintained inclusive language without issue, would you support restoring this language in the Cedar Falls policies? Yes or no, and why?
No, I would not. It hasn't been long. I think we took these out a few months ago. So without issue, I mean, realistically, the state legislature, it's a moving environment, and we got to be honest. There may be issues down the road, and also understand that this is a controversial issue in Cedar Falls. For example, in the last election, Senate District 38 was one of the closest races in all of Iowa between two Cedar Falls residents, both who had held local elected office in Cedar Falls, one a school board member, one a city council member. So these issues do tend to divide, and not everything the Iowa State Legislature does is something I agree with. But I agree with the role of the school board in that we follow the law. We make policy based on law. Thank you.
Thank you. And Grace?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. Given that LGBTQ students experience significantly higher rates of bullying and harassment in schools, and that other public school districts in Iowa have maintained inclusive language without issue, would you support restoring this language in Cedar Falls policies? Yes or no, and why?
I did mention yes before, but now I have 2 extra minutes to tell you why. I would vote to reinstate gender identity in our schools' anti-bullying and anti-discrimination policies, and here are a couple reasons. According to the Trevor Project's 2020 National Survey, if you guys have heard these statistics before, you're going to hear them again because they are real and they are the reason. According to the Trevor Project's 2020 National Survey, 52% of LGBTQ plus students reported being bullied at school or online in the past year, with trans and non-binary, the group that's protected by the gender identity clause and protection, reporting 16% higher rates than their cisgender LGBTQ plus peers. And when LGBTQ plus students are bullied, they face 3 times greater odds of attempting suicide. 3 times. More importantly, you should know that the same study found that LGBTQ plus students who attended an LGBTQ plus affirming school, those that have gender identity protections in their anti-bullying and anti-discrimination policies, had 30% lower odds of being bullied. That's not abstract. Those are our children in our classrooms, in our community. There's also a practical issue. When protections are named explicitly, teachers and staff have a clear standard to point to and enforce. A vague promise to protect all students sounds nice, but the data, you know how much I love data, proves that it simply doesn't work. If it did, history wouldn't show us decades of unequal treatment, nor would the LGBTQ plus students still be among the most targeted groups for bullying today. Civil rights protections, which is what gender identity is, don't appear by accident. Women, people with disabilities, and racial minorities all needed explicit protections because of historic, systemic discrimination. This isn't about adding every category imaginable. One more sentence. It's about recognizing a group of students who are proven with data to face higher risks and ensuring they're safe in our schools. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lowell?
I would not vote to re-include them for the simple reason that every educational advisory or legal group in the state has advised school boards on this. So I'm going to pay attention to our legal counsel as much as I can. Now, what I will say is I I vow to treat every student with respect and dignity. I vow to make sure that our bullying policies protect students from bullying, and that our disciplinary measures are adequate and effective. I don't want any kid in our school bullied for any reason, and I expect teachers, staff, students to follow those policies, and expect that our policies have good disciplinary measures to protect students from bullying.
Okay, thank you. And Kim?
I really struggle with this question because I really trust Andy Petit in a lot of ways, and I know that he does his research when he comes to the board with a recommendation. And hearing what Lowell just said about the groups that they've been advised with, my gut says, my gosh, why wouldn't we include that? But I think that we have to listen to the advice that we're given by all these groups that we hire them to do these kinds of things. I have friends who are gay. My kids grew up with friends who were gay and transgender, and we love them, and we want them protected. Unfortunately, in their friend group, they have had one transgender friend who did take their own life, and that is so sad. And that is something that we have to work very hard to prevent, because as Grace has said, I mean, some of those statistics that she gave were statistics that we used to present in our training modules at the beginning of the year when we took them on suicide prevention. And I don't know if they've been pulled out, some of those statistics, or not, because I obviously haven't been taking those training modules for the last couple of years since the law was implemented. But those are statistics that are there, and we were presented with those statistics so that we could work hard to make sure that they had safe places and safe people and trusted adults that they could go to. And all it takes is one trusted adult for them to feel safe. And that's really important. So I really struggle with this question because my heart and my gut says one thing. And then there's that logic side of me that says, okay, I'd have to talk to Andy about why that recommendation was made.
Okay, so this will be our last question, and then we'll be going into closing statements. And we're starting with Grace. What civic boards or committees have you served on, and what were their impact of this service to the community?
Thank you for the question. I have not served on any community boards. I have, however, served on a multitude of John Deere employee resource groups, which is not exactly the same thing, but I still feel like it's very applicable as far as answering this question, because what are we on the boards or in those groups to do is to make the community, in that case the John Deere community, better. The groups that I've been a part of include the employees affected by disabilities, the Rainbow LGBTQ group, and the women in manufacturing, manufacturing engineers, some of the more professional engineering societies. But being on those boards and changing some of the, for example, on the disability group that I'm on, I keep calling it boards, sorry, used it in the question. We modified some of, as far as the effect of being on that board, we modified some of the policies as far as interviewing to be able to accommodate employees that may need the questions ahead of time so that they have more time to prepare to come to the interviews. It's a small change, but it really makes a big difference as far as really allowing those employees when they're coming into the interview to bring their best self and their most prepared answer, hence all of the prepared questions. I would fall in that group. Another one is advocating for quiet spaces within Deer. Sorry, 20-second. Most of them, I have actually hard examples, are in the employees affected by disabilities group. But I'm happy to discuss those offline because I know I'm running out of time. But I do feel a really strong passion to do that and serve in those capacities. And this is just kind of the next logical step.
Thank you. And Lowell?
Just a few things. So sort of as an extension of being on the school board, the Blackhawk County Assessors Board needs basically city leaders and school board leaders from the Blackhawk County. So I've served on that for, I think, the last 2 years or so. As I stated before, I also serve on the CAPS Advisory Board, which is really probably the most fulfilling thing that I do, because it's a lot of, the board is wonderful. There's so many community leaders on that board. Just to sit in the same room with them is an honor for me. I think that's basically the extent of board representation in the Cedar Falls School Board. But I am active in my local church quite a bit, and try to serve and volunteer either in schools or at work as much as possible as well. So try to do the most with the time that I have.
Thank you. Kim?
A lot of the committees I was involved in was through the schools. I was on the equity committee that was dissolved this past year. I was on there as a teacher, and then as an administrator, and then as a community member when I retired, because that was so important to me. Being a minority, that was very, very important to me. I'm on Leader Valley Council, which I have mentioned, and that does leadership training throughout businesses in the Cedar Valley, but it also works with Leader in Me schools, which concentrates on the 7 habits of that Stephen Covey wrote the book on. And I was on Cedar Falls Schools Foundation, which I think I already mentioned. I want to say it was 9 years, but I could be wrong on that. I was active at PTA at Hanson when my kids went through there. I was on the bike committee for Cedar Falls, for the city of Cedar Falls. I served on that for quite a few years until I moved out to the country to be on the family farm that my husband's family owned. I also did Leadership Investment for Tomorrow training, which was a community group that trained leaders. I was a teacher at the time, but I was allowed to go to this training. It was on Friday afternoons and all day Saturday, and it taught me all about the community in which I live in, the Waterloo Cedar Falls community. So I learned a lot about the history of Waterloo and Cedar Falls, and got to know a lot of leaders that were also going through that training. So I had contacts with leaders throughout the Cedar Valley. And then one thing that I did do with, believe it or not, like 30 years ago, there was no district technology in our buildings. And I was the first district technology chair, and I wrote the plan for the Cedar Falls schools, which I can hardly believe that they would have let me do that. But I did do that, and I was very active in that, and was a leader in that as well. So,
Thank you. And James?
Sure. A lot of my involvement in civic duty has been through professional organizations and professional volunteer work. For example, I've been a reviewer for multiple journals in electrical engineering more times than I can count, sometimes rejecting papers, sometimes pushing them through. I've been a panelist for the National Science Foundation. I've been a reviewer multiple times for the National Science Foundation. I've reviewed posters. I've also worked in the professional organizations such as IEEE, which is Electrical Engineering Organization. I think this has great relevance to different programs in Cedar Falls, such as the CAPS programs, where we're evaluating projects and working directly with different companies in the area to find good projects that we can work with. Also very involved in my local church, St. Stephen's here in Cedar Falls. Thank you.
All right, and now we're going to go on to closing statements. Everyone has 2 minutes for their closing statements, and we will begin with Lowell.
All right, well, I don't have a lot to say other than thank you to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come hear from us. And thank you for the League of Women Voters for sponsoring the event tonight. And just want to say that I'm trying to be as open and straightforward as I can and honest with you as the voters. I have a website. It's Stutzman for School Board. It's the number 4, not spelled out, so stutzman4schoolboard.com, where I've laid out my background education experience, and I'm uploading my position statements as described here tonight. Look, there's certainly challenging and uncomfortable times and decisions that have to be made on the board, but the past few years, I have felt proud to represent Cedar Falls Community School District. I'm proud of what the board has accomplished in the last 4 years, with the new high school being one of the main things. And I'm just asking you to re-elect me to 4 more years of serving you as the community members on the Cedar Falls School Board. Thank you.
Kim?
Thank you very much for allowing us to answer questions and be able to talk with all of you tonight and those who are watching at home as well. I appreciate Gabby, thank you so much for moderating for us, and Jean, and all who organized tonight, but also very much, especially those of you who took the time to come and be here. I hope that I have shown you how passionate I am about the public education system in Cedar Falls and how proud I am of it. And I served for 35 years of my 39 in Cedar Falls schools and was proud to serve in Cedar Falls schools. I hope you give me that opportunity to come back and serve again in a different role as a school board member, because I am passionate about promoting our public schools and doing whatever we can to advocate for our public schools and our students in the public schools. I'm sorry Brian couldn't be here, and I hope that he will answer some of the questions that you citizens have provided. I know Brian as a parent at my last school and love his family, so I hope that he will give us that opportunity to hear his opinions on some of those questions, because I think it's very important for you all to have a informed decision, because I do believe I am the right person for the job for one of those 3 roles, because there are 3 you get to vote for, and I really would like to be able to serve the people of Cedar Falls in this capacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. James?
Yes, thanks for coming all tonight, and thanks to the Black Hawk Brimmer League of Women Voters for putting this on tonight, and thanks for the moderators. The core things I'm running on are improving student-to-teacher ratio, improving staff pay and training for positions such as paraeducators, while reviewing higher-paid administrator salaries, and allowing for years with much smaller or no salary increases for administrators. Also, increasing financial transparency and holding the line on major projects that will affect property taxes. Finally, I'll focus on working with board members to continue Cedar Falls School's tradition of excellence rather than pursuing a narrow partisan agenda. My website is www.mcculloughforschoolboard.com, and I'm on Facebook as James McCullough for Cedar Falls School Board. Finally, I would ask for and be honored by your vote on November 4th. Please vote. Thank you.
And Grace?
Again, thank you for everyone hosting, setting up, moderating. Gabby's her first time. Round of applause for Gabby. And for everybody showing up and asking very thoughtful, relevant questions. I'm just going to be really straightforward with you. I understand that some of the issues that I'm very passionate about are considered divisive or uncomfortable, but I promise you that I'm not uncomfortable fighting for human rights, the issue that I mostly get told that I'm a single issue candidate on. But as you've heard tonight, I also am really good with a spreadsheet and data and root cause analysis for problems, which when they come up will be a really good skill. So just to set the record straight, I am not a single issue candidate, and the political issues that impact our students in our school does not make me a partisan issue candidate. And also, to set another record straight, I heard a couple people talk about their supporters being skeptical of public schools. I'd like to set the record straight that none of my supporters are skeptical of public schools, and they all strongly support public schools. So thank you everyone for coming. Here's some information. You'll be able to watch it again, or you can write it down right now. Early voting is happening right now until November 3rd at 4:30 p.m. Sorry if I stole your spotlight, Gabby. You can do that at the Blackhawk County Auditor's Office. I came prepared. 316 East 5th Street, room 213 in Waterloo. And on voting day, you can find your polling location and the hours at the Iowa Secretary of State website. And please research your candidates. Again, as Kim said, we would love to hear what Brian's answers are to all these, but luckily you have all of our answers now. And of course, you can know how to find us because we talked about that. Just to write it down one more time, it's Grace for the word, not the number, CF School Board on Facebook. And make a plan to vote, whether it's early voting or the day of. Do the planning ahead of time, make sure you don't run out of time, and tell your friends where to find the information. Thank you.
You did take my closing.
Sorry, Gabby.
That's okay. That is all the time we have. We had several questions that we didn't get a chance to ask, and that just is a testament to the engaged people that are here. So thank you all for being here and having such great questions. We would like to thank the school board candidates for joining the forum and participating in this great conversation about the future of Cedar Falls schools. Another thank you to the Blackhawk Bremer League of Women Voters for sponsoring the forum. City of Cedar Falls for hosting, and Channel 15 for recording tonight's conversation so you can go back and watch it again and again and again.
Over and over and over.
And don't forget, because I am intimately aware of the auditor's office, that's where I work adjacent. Election day is November 4th, and early voting is open in the Blackhawk County Courthouse through November 3rd at 4:30. And you can find your polling location and see sample ballots at the Secretary of State website or at blackhawkcountyelections.iowa.gov. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.